I'd like to open it up, and I'd like Brent to start off to tell you a little bit about The Veil, which is a film he shot here last year.
Okay, yeah, the Veil was my first feature. 2 falls ago, I shot my film Running Deer, and that was the first thing I ever did in Oklahoma. And prior to that, I had done 3 kind of long, short films that are 30 minutes each, and I shot those in Tokyo, Colombia, and South Africa. So after those projects, I really wanted to come back and shoot something here, so we did Running Deer, and then this past fall we did The Veil, which was my first feature, and obviously it was because of the Oklahoma Film Incentive Program that I actually got my financing for that feature. So, the program has been, critical for, making films here, and we had a great experience with it.
And you ended up hiring most of your crew locally, did you not?
Yeah, I mean, we brought some people in, and then, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but, probably 80% were local.
And how did you find your crew?
It's just like in LA, same here, it's very relational, so it's all about who you know. So when we shot Running Deer, that was kind of about testing the crew, working with people, and then we brought back a lot of the people that we had success with for there, and then we obviously scaled up. So it's just about, the small community here of people that are doing it, and, when you find someone good, you bring them back. So for all the people we enjoyed working with on Running Deer, we brought them back for The Veil. So. And then obviously the crew list, is important. And we do post-production service, too, at our facility here. So we'd met a lot of people on, these guys' projects as well, so we brought people in from them.
For those of you who don't know, there's an online production guide at oklahomafilm.org, and it doesn't cost you a dime, and you can list yourself on there, link to your website, put your credits in there, and it's a good way of getting your name out there. The Film Commission cannot recommend individuals, so when people call us, what we do is direct them to the production guide and then provide them with 5 or 6 crew lists of recent films so that they can determine who they'd like to contact. David, do you want to talk a little bit about what you bring to the table?
Sure. So I've been working in film sound for probably 7 or 8 years now. I kind of just started as a kid with a laptop in his bedroom, and it just happened to be in the right place at the right time. My father works with Brent, Toy Gun and Gray Hour, and previously EGM. Sure, he's around here somewhere. There he is. And I wound up just sort of, I was making music. I knew how to use the software, and then there was an opportunity to work on a film, and it just kind of kept going. And now it's like teaching at, the opportunity to teach at ACM at UCO, which is a fantastic school, and I love being able to teach. And the benefit is I kind of get to teach people and train people and then hire those people to do the work that I don't want to do, which is great. And, it's I get to educate people and do, show other people how to do something I'm passionate about, and then actually give them the opportunity to work on these real films, which, I mean, they're just stoked to even be considered for stuff like that.
ACM started out as a music academy. How did the whole post-production sound aspect come into play?
That's a good question. I think because their recording studio software is the same as the mixing and post-production software. So I think it's a lot of students go in thinking, yeah, I'm going to start a band, I'm going to get famous, and then they're like, well, I have bills to pay, what am I going to do, And I'm like, well, I know how to use this software, I understand these audio principles and these techniques, and it's just a hop, skip, and jump away if you're willing to do the research, if you're willing to analyze films and pay attention and apply these techniques to another field. It's it's pretty straightforward. So I think it's a big opportunity for people who might not usually make any money doing what they love, if they're musicians, to get jobs elsewhere and be a part of a different industry. And I think a lot of kids have responded very well. I think they've really, I get comments at least a few students per semester that are like, I had no idea this was an option, and I was here to play guitar, and this is something I really enjoy doing. Can I work with you? I'm thrilled to hear that stuff. So
I'm really curious to know how many of you are interested in post-production here in Oklahoma. This is great. we need you guys. So this is a really exciting thing that they're teaching the classes. There's certain categories in our local production crew base that we certainly want to grow out. There's a few positions that we have no one. So there's some great opportunities going forward if we can plug in those spaces. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff and Casey, I don't know if you want to talk individually or together, but you have such a great story to tell.
Another?
What?
We can talk over one another.
Would you tell the story of how Rudderless came into being? Because I think it's very inspirational to the people here in Oklahoma.
I made sure, first of all, that I sat by Casey because I have a tendency to ramble, and that's why I asked him to scoot over because he'll hit me if I start going on too long. Basically, Casey and I have been writing together for about 13 years, and just kind of sharing ideas and going back and forth. And then Casey was driving by Lake Hefner one day. I was a public school teacher. I taught in Mustang and Piedmont and Putnam City and coached and taught English. And Casey's been in advertising. He was driving by Hefner one day, and he called me and said, "You know what would be funny is if there was a guy that lived on a boat at Lake Hefner, just lived in one of those sills. That was his home." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can see it." And then we were both first-time fathers, and so we started talking about, just this overwhelming love we have for our kids. And it's, your parents like, "You'll never understand how much we love you." And we're like, "Yeah, right." And then you have your own kid, and you're like, "Holy cow, they were right." And so we were just overwhelmed. And then our minds kind of can go to dark places sometimes too. And we just started developing this idea. And at that time, we probably had 12 or 13 scripts we'd written together, but we'd never done something just, it was all over the map, historical dramas, horror, whatever. And we wanted to do something family related. And so it kind of developed from there. And Casey was very emboldened. He's a bulldog. I was like, for cathartic purposes, let's write. Casey said, "No, we're not doing, we're gonna make something." I was like, "Okay, we can go in my backyard. I can get a little, like, no, we're gonna do this the right way." And he starts calling people and getting rejection letters, and everybody tells him to go away and all that kind of stuff. But somehow he magically gets in touch with William H. Macy's agent. He says, "Send me the script." And a week later, he emailed us.
Okay, let's.
Am I going too far?
Let's stop right there
it?
because they sent the script unsolicited to William H. Macy's agent, correct?
Yeah. Well, Casey just called him.
Yeah.
And I got to do this
Because that's a big leap of
Here's
faith.
what I do. I'm going to interrupt. I had this whole thing while you guys were talking. I'm listening, and I'm just so impressed with both of you. And I'm sitting here going, I've coached kids that have been All-Americans and had teachers that have been Teachers of the Year. And we've done panels with William H. Macy, who's an Oscar winner, but I've never sat at a table with an icon. And I'm serious. And I can't give her enough applause for all the stuff that she has done. We wouldn't be up here doing this kind of stuff if it wasn't for Jill. So I had to say that. And then I'm going to let Casey talk because I'm starting to run. Thank you, Jill.
Sweet. Thank you.
Tell them about the April.
Thank you. I just want to interject, though. They broke all the rules and it paid off. So don't let people discourage you that it can't happen because they are a case in point of just having, as I described them the other day, having chutzpah. I mean, to send your script into the agent and he actually reads it and sends it on to his client.
Yeah, the William H., how it got in his hands and then even his contact back with us is a pretty funny story because agents do not take your calls. I mean, the assistant's job, amongst many, many, many others, is to basically make sure the agent doesn't take any call that he or she does not want to take. And so we were working to get Rudderless off the ground, and I had read an article that Bill wanted to direct. That was the next dragon that he wanted to slay, so to speak. And so I call his agent, and through some screw up in the switchboard, I get the agent on the phone. So, I immediately go into the people that call it dinner mode, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to give the pitch, and I'm not going to stop talking until I'm done. And so I talked for 2.5 minutes or however long my breath held out, and he just paused and he waited a minute, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, send it along. It sounds like something he might be interested in." 1 week later, and his agent's at CAA, which is one of the biggest agencies in the world. We've had other scripts read by CAA, and it took 3 months to get a letter back that said, no. And 1 week later, on April 1st, 5 years ago, we get an email from a nondescript address, an AOL account, no less, saying, hey, loved your script. If you're interested, I would very much like to speak with you about doing it. This movie, so I was elated and had no idea what the date was, so I called Jeff and 3 or 4 times, and he finally gets out of class, and I tell him, William H. Macy emailed us back, and he's like, if you're screwing with me, and at the time I lived in Kansas City, he's like, I'll drive to Kansas City and pound you into the ground. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's April 1st. And then it dawned on me that it was April Fool's Day. And long story short, it wasn't any of our many, many friends and brothers that would have played a joke. It was actually Macy. We got him on the phone a week later. And that was 5 years ago. So, and it's still not quite in theaters yet. It's going to come out hopefully in the fall. And so it's a long road.
It got 3 standing ovations at Sundance and 3 or 4 the other night with the cast, crew, and family screening. And it's some tough subject matter, but there's a lot. I think it's a movie you're rallying and cheering for the lead character, and you want a good outcome, and the music is fabulous. And in the end, it's a feel-good story of redemption. So
absolutely, it's a beautiful, beautifully shot film, and I believe the number is darn close to 75 or 80% of the crew is from Oklahoma. So when you see if it looks gorgeous, it's because of Oklahomans, and of course the landscape.
73% in-state spend of the budget and 70% local cast and crew. And they use the 2% in the most beautiful way. That additional 2% is something we added to try and incentivize the music industry, because there's, as we know, an incredible depth of talent in Oklahoma, and there always has been. And that 2%, it's been unbelievable, because not only did they use it in a very significant way, because it's part of the story, as well as the fact that the cast includes a lot of our musicians, Chelsea Cope, Travis Linville, I'm going blank on some of the other names.
Punk Stepchild.
Yeah. And the music is getting a lot of attention, which is what we hoped. I had another comment to make, and I lost my train of thought. But, I was going to say there's other films that have used the 2%. Terrence Malick, War to the Wonder, hired Jared Tate, who's a classically trained Chickasaw composer. He wrote original cues that we scored at the Wanda Bass School at OCU that were incorporated into the film. August Osage County used Oklahoma music, so it's really another way to get our culture out there, our talent out there, and to help incentivize the films here. I'd like to open it up to all of you with a few questions. If you could tell us, tell us some of the benefits that you found filming here in the state and why you might film another project here.
Well, we're definitely filming another. Well, I say definitely. All we have to do is raise the money, which is the easy part, right? We definitely want to film another movie here soon. I think there's a lot of benefits of shooting here. Obviously, the cost of shooting here, cost of living, bringing people in, setting them up, that is advantageous before you even get into the incentives. And then we really do have a passionate crew base that continues to grow. And like in LA, it's a very relationship-driven market. And I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm biased, but I think that the folks that are here and that stay here have a Midwest work ethic. And I know that's a cliche, but cliches become cliches for a reason, and often it's because they're true. And for us, shooting at home is just, something that we love to do. It feels like you're shooting with family, and the crew does become family. So that would be my response.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was really intentional about wanting to come back and do something here after shooting all over the world. So I was looking for, part of the reason it drew me here, there was an opportunity to tell a story about a Native American runner that was running deer, and obviously the setting was here. And then with the Veil, we developed that specifically to be shot in Oklahoma. So we developed that over 3 or 4 years. But I knew of these cool, interesting locations that you don't see a lot. So we shot at Turner Falls, we shot at Red Rock Canyon, we looked at a place like Little Sahara. So we developed it to really take advantage of the landscape. So we really wanted it to, the landscape of this film to be like a love letter to Oklahoma. And a lot of people, even on the crew, had never even seen these locations. And then once they saw the stills, they were totally blown away, just because it doesn't look like Oklahoma.
I have to second that. I saw the photos on set one day, that frame grabs from the director of photography, and they shot Turner Falls,
Yeah, Turner Falls, yeah.
Wichita Wildlife Preserve,
Yeah.
Red Rock Canyon. It looks unbelievable. It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and a little bit more about the Veil. It's a sci-fi action film in this unknown time and place of this, this metaphysical journey of this warrior. And William Levy's a star. He was on Dance with the Stars, and William Moseley from Chronicles of Narnia was in it. So we had a great cast, and I mean, even getting them to come to Oklahoma, they were a little bit hesitant. I mean, William Levy's from Cuba, so he doesn't even, he hasn't been in America that long. And William Levy's from London, so they're not that familiar with the Midwest. But when I showed them pictures from our scout, they were, oh, okay, that's not what I really thought about. So we had a great experience shooting here. I think, once people come here, they love it. And we'd like to shoot again. There's, the project this fall that we'll probably bring in. I mean, the incentive program is key, to get a feature done. It's a risky investment. So to have an incentive as in a guaranteed, money back or a way to finance the film or bridge the extra money you need is critical. So without the program, we probably wouldn't be back. So it's important to keep it going and to utilize it.
I think it's important for our state leadership to understand the ones that really aren't in favor of the program, that there are currently 46 states that do have an incentive, and most companies now have an edict that they can only go in and film in a location that does offer something. So if Oklahoma did not have an incentive, we would not even be at the table to be under consideration regardless of incentives. I mean, there may be the rare case where there's somebody like a Steven Spielberg who could go wherever he wants, but those cases are few and far between. David, one thing I wanted to ask you, if you could, talk to the audience, because there are people interested in pursuing careers in the area that you're working in. What kind of advice would you have for them as far as skill sets and getting their foot in the door?
For future post-production people, work a lot is my basic advice. There's not really any other better way than just doing stuff, and then when you don't know how to do the thing you're doing, look it up, And if you do that long enough, somehow you wind up on a panel discussion in front of an audience, as was my secret. But I don't work in production, and I can't really speak about the benefits versus not of coming here. But what I notice in post-production and working with filmmakers here is, I think the few LA films I worked on, there was this. I mean, it was just like everything was set. You do things a certain way, And in here, it's everybody's kind of like, is this right? Is this how you do this? Is this how you make a screenplay? Is this how you shoot a film? But I think that sort of attitude, it kind of makes you more critical. It makes you assess how things are done, and is this the best way to do things? And I think that's, for me, that's what I enjoy about working here, is each project is wildly different in not only in content, but in the approach, It's all still people figuring out how to best make films. I think that's really exciting. I think it's really fun to be a part of,
I would second that. I worked in LA on films early in my career, and it was very stratified. And if you were hired for a position, that's what you're locked in to do, and you're not also helping the set decorator or if you're the production coordinator, you're not, helping the accounting department or whatever. But
by your title.
I would say to you guys who are starting out that is a really good, good pearl of wisdom, because until we grow the industry enough that we have, you know, steady work, which is hard to do with $5 million a year, that money's going to run out, you know, within a fiscal year every year. That's the tough part of this. It behooves you to be able to do a few different things, to wear a few different hats, so that, you know, you're versatile and have the ability to, you know, apply for a multitude of different jobs when we don't have as many yet as we would like to have. So that's, and I would like to second what everybody's saying too. It is a relationship-based business, and I have had people upset with the Film Commission thinking they weren't getting jobs because of something we were doing. We don't go into that territory. I mean, that's not our job. It's word of mouth. So generally, when a filmmaker applies for the rebate or comes to Oklahoma to film, they're talking to your former employers. They're not talking to me. And it's based on what you have done on those prior projects that is either going to carry you or not. So it behooves you to show up for work on time every day with a great attitude. I can't stress to you enough, great attitude and a really strong work ethic. And I know that I got coffee. You know, I'm the old timer here. I've been at this for 32 years, and my first job was wrangling 300 extras a night in the Greenwood district in Tulsa on Rumblefish, and I was thrilled to be there. I would have paid them. And that's kind of the attitude you have to have, because there are so many people that want to work in this industry and so many people that want those jobs. And the good news is in Oklahoma, it's not quite as competitive as it is in LA, but in LA, it is cutthroat, and you've got to want it really badly because there's a lot of others that do, and you're competing with them. So attitude is critical, and work ethic.
Well, I was just going to second one thing that she said, because I have asked her multiple times when we made the jogger to advise. We were like, so no, give us a heads up on some of these people, and she's like, take the list. All I can give you is a list. I tried to get her to break it, but she wouldn't.
Yeah, that's not what we're there to do. We're not trying to hurt anybody's career or, you know, help anybody's career, but your work is going to speak for you, and it's going to be out there. It's a really small community in the film industry. In the case of August Osage County, they had multiple downloads and interviews with the producers of To the Wonder, and they all knew each other. You know, they knew each other before I knew them, so that's how it all happens. And we have some great, hardworking crew. But what I'm seeing is a lot of the same people are getting the jobs over and over again because they're developing a reputation, a good reputation.
And I think something that's important too is obviously when you're young, you can try a lot of things. But as the film industry grows here, I think it's very important to, like, you know, if you want to have a long career, is focusing on something very specific. And as you know, I mean, now the crew is slowly growing, so there's a lot of, you know, chance to cross over. And I think it depends on the project. You know, on Running Deer, it was a smaller project, so you had people crossing over. But when you get into a bigger level film, like the Vel was for us, you know, when we're looking to hire someone, we're looking for a very specific trait, you know. So I think when you're a student or younger, it's great to try those things. If you're working on a short film or, you know, passion project, then, you know, do everything. You know, that's how I got started. I tried editing, I tried sound design, I tried shooting. You know, fail, you know, so then I just, you know, I learned along the way. But then if you really want to have something long-lasting, I think you really have to focus on one thing. You know,
And
really,
I agree with that.
So when we're coming to town, I want to see somebody who has, you know, run Video Village on 5 of them movies and has a good experience on that, you know. So I think, you know, especially as they grow and the programs.
And that'll be the luxury of having a steady program. I mean, it's to have 10 years ahead of us is just more than I can comprehend. It's so good. And, you know, it's been tough the last few years recruiting because, trust me, the studios, the companies, they want to see that you're going to be there for the long run. And if your program is about to sunset, that sends a message that they're worried about even taking a chance. So we're in a good position of having this 10-year extension, and hopefully we'll just keep rolling it on out from there. Jeff and Casey, anything else that you can think of about, you know, things for the crew to think about, or young filmmakers wanting to get their foot in the door? Any advice you would offer?
Yeah, that was we speak silently with our eyes. Do you want to go? No, I'll take it. No, you take it. Go on.
You're like an old married couple.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that our story is unique in terms of we really kind of came into Hollywood, or whatever you want to say, through the side door, and it was very much a damn the torpedoes, we're just going to do it approach. And I think that would behoove anybody who wants to get into this this business is don't talk about it, don't dream about it, just get in there and start doing it, and don't give up kind of approach. And I think that those are the people that succeed. Those are the people that on the crews of our two films that will work on the next one is the people that came out of the blue and were just, I want to work on this film, I want to do whatever I can, and we're very aggressive about it, and they worked hard, and that's how you make it.
One question I'm sure everybody's wondering is, any tips you have on raising funds, because it's so hard. And often, I know financiers are it's like patchworks of financing these days, and it's so complicated, and they're often leveraging, wanting to see there's an incentive, which we have, but how do you take that incentive and market it to the people you're trying to get financing from? How do you go about it?
We're still trying to figure that out. Casey said it earlier. If you've got money, you can make a movie. I mean, anybody can do it. And but it's finding that money a lot of times, and Brent said it too. It's a very risky it's not a great investment. A lot of movies lose money, and it's hard to get that money back. And so you've really got to pitch yourself. You've got to pitch a lot of investors, quite frankly, are not interested in the material. The script, okay, who's going to star in it? Who else do you have? What have you done? And that's why it was so hard. Not only were we not in the film business, it was so hard for Casey and me to raise money the first time, because I was a school teacher and a coach. And I've been making movies in my backyard since I was 5, but they don't care about that. And they look at our business plan, which in retrospect, I think it was a pretty good business plan. But they go, he's in advertising, he's a teacher. I just don't see it. And I didn't blame them at all. And at that time, we had gotten a couple of actors attached, and this is to Rudderless, but they didn't excite people a whole lot. And then Macy came on board, and then you would have thought, and then as soon as Macy came on board, he brought his wife, who's been nominated for an Oscar, and then Lawrence Fishburne, and then he works with Emmy Rossum on Shameless, and Casey, just like he does, he just starts calling like Grammy Award-winning musicians and asking for music, and they're sending it to him. And so we've got all this great stuff somehow, and people still won't give us money. And it's just, you go, I don't know, because at some point you go, this isn't going to work. I can't get a better package together. And then all of a sudden somebody takes the chance, and then somebody else steps in. And the whole thing about us filming that last year is that we had gone through with Bill, it was actually probably 3.5 years at this point. He had dropped out a couple of times. We're trying to make another movie at the same time, and he calls us one day. We had just finished editing our first film, and he says, hey, I met this producer. I think he's a little different than most guys. And we're like, okay. He's like, well, let's talk to him. And so we get on the phone, and he's blah, 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 and he says, I can get you the money, and we can start filming in April. This is in January. We'll start filming this thing in April. I go, okay. Well, I've never heard this one, and because you hear everything. And I'll be darned if we didn't start filming in April. And he's a longtime producer, and he knows how to get money.
You're talking about Keith Carville?
Keith Carville, yeah. And the guy just is you talk about a bulldog. That he's a stud, and he finds the money. And he's got, how many movies has he filmed this last year? 7? Yeah. And he just goes out, finds the money, gets great talent, and it's a gift. We haven't learned it yet.
I will say that these people loved working here too. I asked Keith and Bill to sit on a panel with me at Sundance in January to talk about incentives. There's a company called Entertainment Partners, and they or the premier payroll and incentive consultancy company and to the studios and production companies. And it would make you really proud if you didn't see it to hear what people say about Oklahoma, because I think when I first became film commissioner and journalists would ask me, well, why would anybody want to come to Oklahoma? I think we have a self-image challenge here. I lived in LA for almost 20 years, and when I came back, it just was an eye-opener, seeing it through new eyes, how great it is here. And I think it takes being able to compare it to other places to know that, but when, you know, you guys are right, people initially may not want to come here to scout, or they may have a preconceived idea that it's flat and that we're backward and that there's nothing here. But when they come in, they love it. And then they're converts and they want to come back. And I saw that happen in everybody from, you know, Bill Macy to Felicity to Julia Roberts to Meryl Streep. After August Osage County, Meryl Streep, who has worked all over the world, as we know, said on The Ellen Show, or maybe it was in Huffington Post, I can't remember which one, but that of all the places she's been in the world, the place she most would like to come back to is Oklahoma, because it did something to her soul, those landscapes in Osage County. So I just wanted to share that with you, that we have a lot to be proud of. And, you know, one of the things I've seen on your films is the ability to reduce the line items in your budget with the low cost of living here, but the things that you can get, just people love the industry. When I lived in LA, if the film crews came in and the trucks, the neighbors were petitioning to get them out of there. They didn't want it. It was a headache. It was something, just another hassle to deal with. Whereas here, when you come in, the communities generally are opening their arms and rolling out the red carpet. So much so that Bill told a story at Sundance that I didn't even know, that he walked on the set in Guthrie when you guys were doing a big music festival, street fair scene, and there was a big bandstand and booths and all kinds of stuff, and we're talking a low-budget movie. Rudderless was a low-budget independent film. I probably can't share the budget figure, can I?
We'd prefer not.
Okay. Low-budget independent. So Bill walked on the set and asked Keith Carville, how are we affording this? And he said, well, how much do you think it costs? And he said, oh, $100,000? He said, no, lower. He said, okay, 50? He said, no, lower. He said, okay, 5. He said, they're paying us. They had worked a deal with the beer companies and the vendors that got free advertising in that scene, and they had paid the production for that advertising. That's the kind of things that will help you get your projects done, you know, being creative, coming up with product placement ideas, working with the communities in a way that's beneficial to them. But I would also urge you, when you're out there making movies, whether it's a $500 movie or a $5 million movie, to be good stewards of our communities and our locations, because if you're not, you're going to hurt the next filmmaker that wants to come and shoot there and the industry as a whole. So you've got to take care of, you know, if you shoot someplace, please leave it better than when you came in. Or if you go into a community, work with their community leadership, and please work with us so we can help you do that. The Oklahoma Film and Music Office is there as a free resource to you. And Yusuf Kazemi, would you raise your hand in the back? He's our locations and permitting. Yes! He loves working with you guys, and he is there as a conduit to help you with the permitting, to help introduce you to the community leaders. We have an online location database full of photos of state locations that is free for you to go in 24/7 and shop and, you know, figure out where you might want to shoot. You know, we have an online production guide that's got all kinds of resources of crew, of support services, and you know, we have all kinds of things we're there to offer you, but you've got to call us so we don't know about you until you let us know you're out there needing the help.
I also think if you're going to try and make movies here, that you need to, I mean, to me, I love Oklahoma. I love being from here, and just embrace it. I mean, if somebody's coming in from Hollywood, don't worry about taking them to Cattleman's to get some calf fries or whatever. I mean, embrace
They
it.
love those authentic
Yeah.
experiences.
And it's the thing is, you can always prepare every time somebody's getting ready to come out here and be like, well, just it's a little different, than probably what you're used to, and in a good way, but you're going to be overwhelmed by how friendly and just compassionate and helpful people are, and they're like, and they get here and they're just blown away, and just absolutely blown away, and I think that's something, don't be like, oh, we're not LA, but we need to act like it, just embrace it.
We need to embrace it and celebrate it. And a great story about Cattleman's is that Michael Winterbottom, who directed Trip to Italy, which was our opening night film last night, he shot a movie in Oklahoma, one of the first rebate customers we had, and it was the antithesis of Trip to Italy. It was Killer Inside Me, dark, dark, dark. But he came in from London with his production designer, and we scouted the heck out of that film. They were going to shoot it in New Mexico, and we just, as has been, claimed of my office, we wouldn't let him out of the van. We just kept scouting. So we took him to Cattleman's for lunch during the scout, and they loved it so much that they wrote a scene into the movie that is set in Cattleman's, and you'll see it. It's supposed to be a diner, I think, in Fort Worth, but it was Cattleman's restaurant. So they love that kind of stuff. We should probably open it up to questions. Do you guys have any questions for the panel? Anybody? I see somebody. It's really tricky, and I'm glad you asked that. I'm walking a very fine line because the way it's written, it's pretty much been first come, first serve. So when we reopened the rebate queue in 2012 for fiscal years 13 and 14, it sold out in 12 minutes. We sold out $10 million in 12 minutes, which was heartbreaking because there's a young man named Kyle Roberts. Are you here, Kyle? No, he's not. He has a film in the festival called Posthuman that is fabulous, and he didn't get rebate money because he was not one of the first people to arrive, like Jeff and Casey, who I think slept in the lobby that night or something. And Brent.
It smelled like you slept in the lobby.
But the challenge is that, again, I'm in a public forum, I have to be really careful. Oklahoma, it's a very conservative state. So I took a lot of grief over August Osage County because of content. But what I will say to that is, it was written by an Oklahoman. It was a 5-time Tony-winning play. It was a Pulitzer Prize-winning play, and it's fiction. So I don't ever want to be in a position to censor. That's not what my office should be doing. There's nothing in our statute that says that we should be censoring, and there are states that have tried to do that, like Texas added a clause that says, I believe the projects applying cannot represent Texas in a bad light. Well, if that's the case, then Lincoln couldn't have been shot, 10 Years a Slave or 12 Years a Slave would not have been shot. I mean, who decides that? That's a very slippery slope, but I will say if something is egregiously offensive, then we're going to look at that. But if it's art and, somebody has bad language and family problems, I think there are Oklahomans who drop the F-bomb and have family problems. And, I still stand by that decision. It's tough. So there's not a real clear answer, but it's something that I have to walk a fine line on.
But it is first come, first serve. So
Yeah.
if you're from Oklahoma, you have the inside track, and asking Jill, like I did before, when is it going to open? What's the date? And then you just get there the day before. So for both of our movies, we knew it was, not worth the risk. So, I will.
We had chairs out in the lobby. It was like a,
we were both down there
Walmart,
probably
take a ticket at
5:30
the
in the
tire
morning with
desk.
the coffee,
Yeah.
just waiting it out, because it's worth. You're talking about, big money back, an important piece of the film. So.
And there's another challenge because with $5 million, we have to slot the films. So I've got what it's called a queue. We pre-qualify these first in line, but we had 3 films drop out. So then we're backfilling, based on a waiting list. But once somebody's pre-qualified, they've got to know the money's there. So I've got to set it aside for them. I can't say, yes, you have the money, and then they finish the film, and somebody else cut in front of them in line and got the money. So,
I think it's also very fair, too, that you have to have benchmarks. I mean, okay, you're qualified, but if you don't have a certain amount of money by this time, then sorry, but the next guy, which is fair, you know.
we've got
Doesn't
four,
always come through.
14 or 15 pages of guidelines, which we had to do. We can't leave gray areas out there for interpretation. We need to make it as clear for you as possible, and I'll tell you that we are in the midst of updating those guidelines. They will have been updated by the time the queue opens in August, and the goal of those was to fine-tune it. We wrote the guidelines before we had any projects, so we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So, you know, they're pretty ironclad, but that benefits you and it benefits us. And if you're not on our mailing list and on our getting, you know, our monthly reports, please sign up, because that's how I communicate when the rebate queue is opening. It will open in early August, and everybody will be notified well in advance of that. But again, I've got to be able to reach out to you to know who you are. Any other questions?
You mentioned another film office, I think the Austin one, but are there any other film offices throughout the country that are lead a good example and are that you've learned from as you continue to grow?
I do that on a regular basis, and one of my favorite parts of my job is the relationship that I have with the other film commissioners. We have a parent organization. When we wrote the guidelines, we'd never had a rebate customer, so the first thing I did was contact the film commissions, for which I knew they had strong leadership and strong programs, and then the payroll companies that advised them. So our guidelines were created in a collaborative state with the people who had succeeded. So I wanted to find out what has worked, what hasn't worked, and if it hasn't worked, I created a stopgap. For example, you can't transfer your rebate position in line to somebody else, because people were selling their positions off in Arizona. I mean, if it can be done, people will do it. Sometimes they take the guidelines as a guide of how to circumvent the system. So yes, I would say New Mexico, Lisa Stroud is no longer there. She was their longtime film commissioner. She's now in Massachusetts, but I really looked to her because she was a real pro. Ironically, New Mexico took Oklahoma's program and replicated it. Oklahoma had our program first, and I had this confirmed to me from the former chief of staff to Governor Richardson at a conference in LA. His name is Eric Witt, and he came up to me and he congratulated us because we were succeeding, and he said, you know, we built our program off of yours. And I said, I know that, and you guys funded it to the nines, and you know, they leapfrogged over us. But New Mexico probably was the most similar, and I looked to them, I looked to Georgia's guidelines, and they've, you know, skyrocketed in the last 5 years because they have no cap on their program. There's certain states we'll never be. We're never going to be Louisiana because our state governments are so different, and they have transferable tax credits. We are not going to be doing that. It's a little loose and fast for Oklahoma, so we're never going to be that program. Texas, I love. I love all their film commissioners. We talk to each other on a regular basis, and that's how I knew intimately some of the details about this content clause and how much it's hurt them. So. Anybody else?
I've got a question for you. Where'd you get that hat, man? That thing's rad. Yeah, I'm going to get one today.
All right, go Blue 7.
There it is. All right, thanks. Sorry. Not film related. Love it.
After you guys got that magical email from Willie Introducing, were you asking for like a letter of intent, or like how did you instill confidence in him that you guys, did you already have a producer on, or was it just you two at the time?
No, it was just us.
It was just us. We had a small amount of money set aside, and we were just really forthright with where the project was. I mean, we had half of we were doing it, originally it was going to be a $500,000 film. We had half of that money in the bank, so he knew that. We felt that his attachment as director would help us get the other half of that. And then it was just really conversations with him. We didn't get an outright letter of intent at first. We ultimately did to show to potential investors. Of course, as soon as Bill signed on, he's like, "This needs to be a $3 million film."
Yeah, exactly.
And then the next time we talked to him, he's like, "It needs to be a $5 million film," which
Well, and then
is
his
pretty
agent said it
normal.
needed to be 20 million.
Then as an agent, yes, said it
Yeah.
need to be 20, which
Right.
is I think pretty normal for directors. You know, it's like, how much is your budget? Okay, we need to quadruple that for me. You know, because they want the best project they can get.
Well, after he emailed us and we got him on the phone, I think if we had just completely bumbled the first phone call, we ended up talking to him for not. Well, actually, Casey talked to him. I sat and kind of was like, yep, okay. And he actually at one point he said, Jeff, you still there? And I was like, I'm just taking notes, man. It's all good. The first phone call I think went really well, and I think it's just because he's just a super great guy. But he invited us out to his house after that first phone call. So we were at his house hanging out with him a month after that, just going, what is going on? Why are we here?
But
And he was just, but he's a very generous, he's a very cool guy. But I think if we had gotten on the phone and just completely bumbled it and been complete idiots, he probably never would have gone forward. So.
And I do think that's a really important fact for anyone out there that's you know, writing and taking a project out. In that first conversation, we knew everything we wanted Rudderless to be. We knew the script inside and out, obviously, because we'd written it. But in terms of the tone and what we wanted the entire film to look like and feel like, and it didn't necessarily line up exactly with what Bill wanted, perhaps, but in that conversation, he knew we had dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's in terms of the project, and I think that was very important for him to want to commit to the project because it made it feel more real than just a script that we'd put together. Hey, we've got a script and some money in the bank. You know, he's an artist, so he wanted to know that there was a lot more behind it.
And I think it's important to note you guys got a great cast, and often cast will work for a scale or really reduced rate on the merits of the script. It can be done, and it's happening more and more.
Yeah, and it'd be really cool to think, oh, the script was so great that these actors were all. I think the script got into a pretty good place, but I think the fact that he was attached as director, he called in favors, which is what you. You meet people and you call in favors. People connected with the script, but it was his feature directorial debut, and I think they wanted to work with him. So it was just a lot of things were working in our favor, but we knew that, and I don't think it's like manipulative, but we had a very clear-cut strategy of this is how we're going to approach this and do these things, and we did our homework, and that always helps. And then you make connections with people, and sometimes they like you, sometimes they don't.
And that is a very big thing because it was approached like a business. It's the film business. It's not the film art. So at a certain point, you know, even though we were passionate about the script, when we went to Bill, it was a very much a business decision because we had a low budget. Low budget means you need favors. Well, William H. Macy, wanting to direct for the first time, he had a lot of favors to call in, and we assumed that was the case. So that helped stretch the dollar.
Somebody mentioned something about financing or finding investors and stuff earlier, and I said that some people aren't even interested in the script. I think most people probably want to know what that product is, but he hit on it, and because Casey and I like to write, and I'm, as an English teacher, he's in advertising, it's very much art. The bottom line is if people are going to put money into your movie, they expect to get it back, and they want to make money. That's what it is. It's a business. And so if you can put out a great product or a good product and get those investors their money back and maybe a little bit extra, then they're going to want to reinvest. And it's kind of, it's not a fun part. It's probably the worst part of all of it is trying to find financing, but it's a necessary evil. But, you've got to also prove that you're great stewards for people's money. Having the rebate, having great Oklahoma crew that work their tails off is they come to the set and they go, oh yeah, these guys, my money's going, it's being used wisely. And then hopefully you get a good product. And we got, Rudderless got distribution. It's already made a little bit of money for our investors. And so now we're in a good position to go back out. But it doesn't mean anything's automatic. It's still a very risky endeavor. But you just kind of got to, hey, here are the numbers. This is what we do. And this is what we think we can do for you because they're businessmen and they want to make more money. And that's just kind of the way things are. So you've got to be able to, in my opinion, take off your artistic hat a lot of times and look at it from a completely commercial side and business side, or you're probably not going to do it very long.
I'm not sure how much time we have. Are we supposed to finish at 12? Does anybody know? I don't think anybody's with us. Okay. Maybe one more question?
There's a guy, gentleman.
Oh, we have two. Okay.
I mean, if you're especially here in Oklahoma, I mean, look to your left or to your right. You know, half the people in this audience are active people in the film crew, and I think, you know, if you really want to do it and seek out advice, there's people here to help. You know, I mean, Dave, raise your hand. You know, there you go, right there. Talk to him. You know, we can help. You know, all of us are willing to help. We all know the same people. A lot of us have worked on the same projects, and you know, we want to see people do things the right way. You know, because your film will help our film. Help their next one. So I think people are willing to help. You definitely just need to reach out. I mean, obviously big, you know, stars and actors are hard to get to, but, you know, producers and the people that are making the film are available if you look hard enough, you know. So I think, you know, there's enough people here that can help you, you know, guide you in the right way. So I think it's just, you know, asking for advice, you know. Sometimes it's as easy as that, and they, you know, help get you started.
Meet as many people as you can during the festival. I tell people that all the time. Show up at deadCENTER and network. And any other events like this, because there's a lot of people like you out there.
Yeah.
Make sure you surround yourself with good people and people that are. It's not hard for us. People that are smarter than you, because I'm telling you, if you hire, there's a guy, and I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. He's on vacation right now, and I always am talking about this guy. There's a guy named Nathan Gardaki, who I think everybody in here
Yay.
has worked with, and he's,
We love Nathan.
Hey, Nathan. We did a movie. We'd never been on a movie set. We produced it, directed it, wrote it, and once we hired Nathan, it became a reality because he basically knows everybody and everything, and he made our jobs much, much easier. And then up to your right there, Sean Patrick Eaton. Sorry, but he's locations. He's a guy that, right, Sean, can you? And then Sharon Tabb is right, and she's hair and makeup. She's right in front of you, man. There's people.
Chris
all-
Freihofer, our
Freihofer,
casting director
here.
extraordinaire. They're all
There's
here.
people all over. Just start meeting people. And yeah, all the people that we just mentioned are great people too. And I mean, it's just, you're lucky to be in Oklahoma because most people are really cool and they want to help each other. But always surround yourselves with people you can trust. That's huge, you know. So.
One last question, Rick Allen Lippert.
Is the sales tax exemption for production equipment still in effect?
It sure is, and I didn't even mention that. If you don't meet the minimum requirements on the rebate, there is a point-of-purchase sales tax exemption, which you apply for with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. They issue you a little card, and you don't pay sales tax at the point you're purchasing items for your film. And we can direct you to the tax commission, connect you, but it's administered through them. Yes. It's either or. You can't use both. Thank you guys very much. It's really great to see such a big crowd.